yes, I played that eldest daughter role really well. Internally, I felt really alone, like really lonely, really depressed. Because I was doing all this stuff all the time, I feel like I didn't get a chance to have fun and really develop deep friendships. And so it was a really tough childhood, and it really enforced that hyper independence that I developed, where I felt like I was on my own and I kind of had to just do things on my own. It was a really dark time for me where I felt really broken. Like, I remember I would look in the mirror and just look at myself and think, "Oh, I am broken." And it was a time when I really struggled with suicidal ideation.
Welcome to Normalize the Conversation. I'm your host, Francesca Regater, and today I'm joined by Kathryn Lee, a licensed psychotherapist specializing in supporting high-achieving professionals, entrepreneurs, and creatives through anxiety, depression, burnout, and complex trauma. In this episode, Kathryn unpacks the unique pressures of being the eldest daughter and how these expectations shaped her mental and physical health. She shares her journey of shedding the should-be mentality, listening to her body, and embracing who she truly is beyond family roles. Kathryn, thank you so much for joining me today. I'm really excited for our conversation, but before we begin, I just want to check in. How are you really?
Really good question, and thank you for asking. Things have been really busy in my personal life with work, but I feel like things are finally starting to settle, so that's been feeling really good. I'm also super excited to talk to you today. It's quite gloomy here in New York, so I'm really happy to be here and to be talking to you today.
Oh, I'm really excited to talk with you today as well. I started my weekend with my brother saying, "Oh, I just bought a house." And he's like a baby. He's 22. And I'm so happy for him. But it really triggered these feelings of, oh, I should be the responsible one. I should be the one taking care of him. I should be the one on track to be able to take care of my family more. I should be the one who's just being like that caretaker and being better. And then he really brought out all these insecurities that I hadn't felt in a little bit. So I was like, this is going to be such a great time to talk about what that's like to be the eldest daughter, not just from those expectations of my family and being parentified at a young age, but now kind of being triggered by the idea of, wow, I'm not where I thought I should be, and all these insecurities from back then. I don't know if that made sense, but I'm excited.
Totally. You make sense 100%. Yes.
So to start off, tell us a bit about you.
Yeah, so to kind of set the scene here and to provide some context, I'm in New York City now, but I was also born in New York City. I was raised in the New York area. My mom is a Juilliard trained pianist. My dad is a former stockbroker. I was raised in a Korean evangelical church. I was also a dancer, and I attended what is known here to be like a pressure cooker school in the city. All that is to say is I was surrounded by a lot of intensity, right? A lot of expectations, a lot of pressures, a lot of just big personalities too, and a lot of messages, explicit, implicit, on who I should be, what I should be doing, where I should be headed, all of those things. And as a child, I was very serious. I was very reflective, a little bit more reserved, very type A, and a perfectionist in the more moral sense, where I was very fixated on doing the right thing. And so, of course, with a combination of all of that, I took my eldest daughter role very seriously. I have a younger sister, and I took a lot of responsibilities on myself. And I did my utmost best to take care of her, to be there for her. And of course, I did it out of love as well. I love my sister very dearly, but I did take on a lot of responsibilities. And so I became the responsible one, the mature one, the wise one, the one that was like dependable and like she's got it. Um, but it was also very interesting because as I got older and like became a teenager, I actually fought with my parents a lot. Because I think my parents had like a certain idea, especially my mom, of who they wanted me to be and become. And of course, I understand as an adult now, it came from, the best of intentions. She wanted me to do well and succeed in life. My dad and I think, have very similar temperaments and personalities, and we wouldn't see eye to eye a lot, so we would clash a lot. Um, and so again, it was interesting because like I was that, eldest, I played that eldest daughter role really well. At the same time, I was also like the emotional one. I was like really sensitive. I was too much. And I bring this up because I feel like it's a dichotomy that like a lot of eldest daughters of parentified children sit in, where it's like they are both, they experience both of those parts. And I guess mental health wise, through it all internally, I felt really alone, like really lonely, really depressed. Because I was doing all this stuff all the time, I feel like I didn't get a chance to really like have fun, and really develop like deep friendships. And so it was a like a really tough childhood, and it really enforced that hyper independence that I developed, where I felt like I was on my own and I kind of had to just do things on my own. Um so that's, I guess, a little bit. I know I just talked a lot about like my background and childhood, but um I guess going into, I guess, my young adulthood, my college years, um, my mental health, all those mental health symptoms started to manifest physically, where, um, I'm going to college. I'm really excited. I want to like start anew and like start fresh. I'm gonna make friends and it's gonna be different. I'm on my own. But I developed all these physical health symptoms, like pretty much, it was very shocking to me because it happened so abruptly. It just like happened overnight, where I developed IBS, see irritable bowel syndrome, and my body basically just shut down. So um, I couldn't eat many foods, anything with dairy, anything with gluten, anything with soy, any meat or any meat products. My body would just reject it. I would like balloon and swell up. I would break out into hives, and I got so sensitive to these ingredients that, sometimes I would like use soap and I would just have like an episode, and it was terrible, and it lasted for days, sometimes weeks. And on top of that, I started to get my period like multiple times a month. Um, Multiple times a month. And even with birth control, because, I was having such irregular cycles that I was, put on birth control, it was still very irregular. And also I do want to note, like with my IBS, I did get medical like consultation and I was seeing doctors at the time. I just want people to know, if they're going through that, like don't just try to do things on your own. And don't, yeah, whatever I did is not a prescription for, what you're going through. Um, but yeah, I developed all these health issues, right? And I think because of those, all these issues, there must have been some sort of, or no, there was definitely an imbalance in my body that just resulted in other side effects. Like I was not sleeping well at all. I was only getting a few hours of sleep a night. Like I was just having like a lot of aches and pains in my body. And of course, my mental health was terrible. It was in the absolute gutter. Um, it was it was a really dark time for me where I felt really broken. quite literally. Like I remember I would look in the mirror and just look at myself and think, oh my gosh, like I can't even do these like basic bodily human functions. Like I am broken. And it that kind of mentality just like seeped into every facet of my life, whether it was with school or socially. It was a time when I really struggled with suicidal ideation. Um, and that persisted for the entirety of my college career. Um, yeah, it persisted for the entirety of my college career. And of course, me being kind of like that perfectionist, eldest daughter individual, that was really devastating for me because I had a picture of what I wanted my experience to look like and um like the opportunities I would get. But here I was, and I felt like all of my energy was just like kind of going to my physical health and my mental health as well too. I felt like consumed and overwhelmed by all of this when I was like, oh, should be doing those internships and like I should be that. I should have done better. I should have studied more. I should have done this. I should have done that. But it's like, oh, I had a flare up and I couldn't, you know. I was really hard on myself. Always, but especially during that time, I feel like maybe that was like the only thing I felt like I could control almost in a weird, like, sort of way. Um, but I'm going to fast forward a little bit here. I know I'm talking a lot about my story, but fast forward to kind of, I had graduated and I was working, and I just got to a point where I was like, oh my gosh, I can't do this. Something needs to change. And so I quit my job with no plan. And I decided, okay, I'm going to focus on my physical health, my mental health, my emotional health, my spiritual health. I'm just going to focus on me. My job had no plans. I had no idea what that even looked like as well, too. But I was really determined to make change or to like it was like a last resort sort of thing. Like I need to do something drastic. So let me do the drastic thing and quit my job. Again, for someone who had just graduated from college, you think, "Oh, I should be like in my first job and I should be like really starting off my career and I should be, you know, being a 22, 23-year-old, however you are, like in New York City, having fun and like making stupid decisions, you know." But here I was, and I was like, nope, I have decided to quit my job and I'm gonna live at home and I'm just gonna focus on me. Um, but it was in that time though that I I was able to heal both physically, mentally, and emotionally. And it was really when I allowed myself to sit in stillness, like literally I did nothing and I sat with myself, literally sat with myself and allowed myself to feel my feelings, process them, like be really honest with myself. And that honesty that I had with myself allowed me to be then honest with other people. It allowed me to be more open and vulnerable. And I feel like that was what really allowed me to then, you know, really work on my mental health, confront my traumas, take ownership of some stuff, like take charge of my like physical healing as well. Like I had a lot of healing I had to do with my gut. And again, like that decision really sparked this journey for me, which ultimately that's why I became a therapist actually, because I had never wanted, not never wanted, but I had never considered it. You know, I never considered being a therapist. Like I'm Korean American. I'm like the only one in my family that really goes to therapy right now. And that has sought like psychiatric and like mental health treatment. So I had never considered it. I studied political science as an undergrad. I always thought, you know, maybe I go to like law school or something like that, or a lot of, you know, a lot of folks in my family are like in business and finance. And so I thought maybe I would go down that route. But yeah, this was never a consideration. But after everything that I had been through, a few people started asking me, like, hey, have you ever considered this? And I I hadn't, but it definitely got the wheels turning in my head. And I was like, you know what? I think I'd always wanted to help people. And I think that, maybe I could do some good and I could be a good therapist and help people feel more seen and understood, less alone because I felt so deeply alone. And um, that I thought that, okay, maybe I can do this. And so here I am now sitting in front of you.
What a journey from genuine, like so much different types of pain, that emotional, that physical, to purpose and making sure that others don't go through it. Or if they are going through it, they have that support. Because, like you said, it felt so alone. Like you felt so alone in it. And to be able to offer that
Yeah.
support to others, that's incredible.
Yeah, and I find that that's something that a lot of people, not just like eldest daughters or people who are parentified, like everyone especially now feels that everyone just feels so alone. I feel like a lot of people think like, oh, I'm the only one that's going through this, or I'm the only one that thinks this way, like, oh, there's something wrong with me. And it's like, no, 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 absolutely not. Like you are not alone. And I feel like the more that people are just like able to be a little bit more open and vulnerable and just like talk about their experience, that's when, or at least for me too, like that's when I feel like um yeah, that's where I found the most healing and where I see people like feel so connected to others and then that sparks a lot of like healing as well too.
So much of what you said resonated with me. And like you said, I felt like I was the only one going through it as well. Because when we're talking about it, it really does feel that way. And years ago, when I was younger, people weren't talking about it. Social media wasn't even a thing yet. So
No, yeah,
finding people widely around the world even beginning to talk about it, it just felt so isolating. And I know for me, like one theme that came up over and over again that you said was the shoulds. And that's exactly how I felt. Like I should be taking care of my younger brother and doing more, which is why I'm buying a house first. So heartbreaking. Love it for him so much.
yeah,
Felt like I should be the one taking care of him. But
yeah,
having that feeling of I should be perfect and finding all my value in being good enough. And if I had straight A's and I was good at cheer and I was taking care of my family and making good breakfasts and making sure when my parents were going through a divorce that my brother felt like he was very taken care of and he had dinner every night. And all those shoulds really amplified different types of physical symptoms where my legs would just go numb and give out. But
yeah,
going into college and trying to figure out who I was in the midst of all these things that I thought I should be. And I mean, just what you said, it feels so isolating when you feel like you're the only one going through that, and then you're stuck in a position where you're like, who am I? What do I value? What do I like? What should I be doing for me, not for others?
And those are, I mean, those were the questions, same exact questions I asked as well. And I think that's a huge, I mean, that's a huge part of so many people's process when they are kind of like working through the shoulds. It's like, wait a minute, hold up. Like, where are these shoulds coming from? And like, what do I actually like? What do I actually want? What do I actually need? Right. And if I feel like I need this, like even that, like where is that coming from? Like who did anyone tell me that? Or like is this actually from me? It's I mean, those are really, really good questions when you're talking about like shoulds. I'm like, yeah, that's a good place to go always. And I feel like yeah, I mean, I think you can attest to this. Like, I think for a lot of people, that's what like really gets the wheels turning.
Figuring out where those messages came from. I mean, in the beginning, you said some were implicit, some were explicit. And so much of it really felt, I want to say, implicit, right? They were these expectations. And I don't know how it was with you and your sister, but for me and my brother, there was all these expectations on me to be like the straight A student. And then my brother, if he got like a C, they were like, woohoo, good job. So it became so much expectation that I internalized as I have to be perfect to have value and worth versus he could just skate by.
Yeah. I feel like, so for me and my sister, like I feel like there were a lot of expectations on us both. I think the biggest difference though is I got a lot of messages, um, from my grandpa specifically, and of course he did this because like he loves us and, again, all with the best intentions, but he would tell us quite frequently, and a lot of this is cultural as well. I feel like there's like a lot of weight on being the eldest sibling in Korean culture. But he would say like you have to take care of your sister. Like at the end of the day, like it's you and your sister, like you will always have each other. And again, as I mentioned earlier, like I was such a serious kid that I heard that and I was like, yes, I will take care of my sister. I will do everything I need to do to make sure that she is good, you know? And it look, I love my sisters too, so I feel like that made it really easy as well. And I just wanted to like teach her everything. I wanted her to feel like super equipped for everything. And I remember this is a story that my dad tells to people a lot actually, is that I would come home from school and then I would teach my sister like everything I learned that day. And this is like when I'm like 6 years old. I'm maybe like in first grade or kindergarten. And so when it came time for her to go to school, like she already knew everything. She already like knew everything, and my parents had to tell me like you need to stop teaching her because she needs to learn in school. But that's just to give like an example of how from such a young age I just felt like so responsible. And again, it's very it was very not confusing, but I also again did like I do enjoy helping people too. And so that's something I had to learn even as an adult is like I do enjoy this, but I also need to have limits and boundaries or else I'm just gonna burn myself out. Of course, as a 5, 6 year old, you're not thinking about those things. You're just like, well, they told me I gotta do this, so I gotta do it, and I like doing it, so I'm just gonna do it. But that's kind of how I guess the roles played out for me and my sister. And I was always like the guinea pig. I was always doing things first, and she had she by default, of course, like she saw me go through something, so she had a little bit of intel. She got a little taste of what was to come. So uh I feel like I had to kind of like be the brave one all the time. I had to be the first to do this and the first to do that. And yeah, that's how like the roles kind of played out. But like expectations wise, I think there were a lot of expectations, at least for like, achievements and whatnot. It was pretty much the same, but it was very much like, um, I guess much more like emotional.
That's such a powerful message to get at a young age. I mean, like 6 years old, you need to be taking care of your sister. And not only is that a very direct kind of like explanation of what your role is, just as the family member, but also when that's common within your culture, it adds that extra layer of this is genuinely what I'm supposed to do, who I'm supposed to be. And adding to the fact that you cared so much and you enjoyed helping. It's like the fatal flaws when you enjoy doing the thing that doesn't give you space to explore who you are
Yeah.
and you fit in.
And I find this is really common with a lot of, I think, folks who are parentified or eldest daughters. Like they genuinely want to help people.
Yeah.
Genuinely. Like I'm sure you're the same, right? Like that's why you're studying what you're studying too. Like you genuinely want to help people. I also genuinely wanted to help you. I'm sure there are tons of people who are like, I really want to help people. Like I find so much meaning in it. And I think that is really beautiful and wonderful. At the same time, again, I learned this as an adult, like it is important to have boundaries because if that becomes like your entire identity, right? If you just root yourself in that, like you'll just completely lose yourself and you won't know who you are. Um, and so I've had to do a lot of work on that, especially in like my 20s on really figuring out, okay, who am I? Why are you doing this? And I thought about it too a lot, even as I was studying to become a therapist. Like, why? Like, okay, yeah, I like to help people, but like, why do I specifically want to become a therapist? Because you can help people in so many different ways, right? Like I could have been a doctor, I could have been a teacher. Like, there's so many ways to help people. Why a therapist specifically? And I think sitting with those questions, it was so important for me to reconnect with myself. Um, and to really understand who I am, what I valued, and identifying strengths, and limitations and boundaries, etc.
Yeah, and this is exactly where I'm at is learning all of this.
Yeah.
Because 20s, oh, it's such a tough time. But
Yeah.
so for me, was, I internalized it too, as I have to take care of my family. So my grandmother, after she was in a car accident, broke a lot of bones, and then lost her
Yeah.
husband and her son, I like took care of her. So I flew across the country every few days for an entire year and was her
Mhm.
caretaker at home, but then also a student. And I justified it as I love her so much and I'm supposed to help her. I'm supposed to
Yeah,
be a caretaker for her. She did so much for me. I should be doing this.
of
We're
course.
so close. And then so now I'm discovering who I am outside of those messages and outside of being that caretaker from trying to care for my brother to caring for my grandmother. And this has been one of the hardest journeys because
Yeah,
learning all these messages who I thought I should be, and I love my grandmother and I would totally take care of her again.
right, right.
All these messages, I'm like clarifying, um, who I should be. And I loved doing it, but I was so burnt out. I was not
Yeah,
advocating for myself at all. I was in a constant state of jet lag. I was always getting sick. And now I'm
yeah.
learning that I can say no to things. And that's honestly, it's scary to be able to change from I have to do everything to no, I need to take care of myself first so that I can be a human being.
I hear you. I hear you. Again, it's so hard when you genuinely like want to help people. You love your grandmother. Like I loved my sister. I still do. I adore her. And that's when it's really the hardest, I find. And again, like you're saying, like those roles are so ingrained in our systems. It is really hard to unlearn and undo.
How did you begin to, I guess, even know that these were messages given to you and what kind of questions to ask?
Well, a lot of my own therapy and a lot of reflection. So for me, I really sat with and identified like what are the roles that I've been playing? What are some of the narratives, these ongoing narratives in my life? And I started identifying, okay, what behaviors are also attached to those roles and narratives and those beliefs. And when I really sat with it and paid attention and slowed down, I was like, oh my gosh, is my entire personality a trauma response? I had a little bit of a freak out actually, because I was like, what is actually me? I feel like this is all trauma now, right? Like even the fact that I was like drawn to intensity, like what I was talking about earlier, like I was surrounded by so much intensity and I found myself like being drawn to a lot of it. And I saw it in like the most like quote unquote like innocuous, harmless, seemingly harmless things. Like the TV shows I kind of like to watch. Like I like the TV shows that are like really nuanced and with a lot of depth, that had some commentary on society, right? Even the books, I felt like all my books were like so heavy, especially when I was in grad school. I did not read a single book for pleasure. Right. It was all like psychology, self-help oriented. Even when I was like, when podcasts like started coming out and people were listening to them more, like they were all very like serious. Like they were not or not serious, but they weren't for fun. Like I didn't do anything for fun, I began to realize. Like everything was so intense. And that's what I mean by like the behaviors attached to um the narratives or even yeah, I realize this too is like when people, well, and I know a lot of people say this, but when people say like, "How are you?" and it's such a kind of like impulse knee jerk to be like, "Oh, I'm fine. How are you?"
Yeah, there's
Right? I'm fine. How are you? Right? But it's like, are you actually fine? And there's no need to, of course, like dump on everyone and be like, no, I'm not fine and tell your life story. But if you're not fine, like it's okay to like say like, oh, I've actually been kind of stressed or there's been like a lot going on or I am feeling a little overwhelmed. Or even if you are fine, like you're genuinely fine, share something, I don't know, like positive or something that made you smile like in the day or earlier in the week. I don't know, you went to a restaurant that you really liked, or you found a new restaurant that you feel like is like, really good. I don't know, like just even in those like little things, I just began to notice like, okay, I'm responding a certain way because of this. And I started challenging myself in the little ways, like, okay, how can I be a little bit open and not just say I'm fine all the time?
It's so true. How are you is such a greeting. It's rarely a question, and that's where the question to open the podcast came from, the how are you really?
Yeah.
I realized I don't like when someone says fine because I don't believe fine. Like fine is a word that's something's going on. Because if you're feeling good, you usually say, good, how are you?
Yeah.
And just being able to open that space where, like you said, you don't have to dump everything that's going on, but a little bit about what's going on. Like I started when we first jumped on with, I didn't plan my life well because I forgot about grocery shopping and pushed it off to a Monday, which is never a good idea. But so just trying to find that little bit of honesty in a way that reflects where you're at, but it's not a full kind of dump on someone that maybe you just don't want to do, where that person doesn't need to receive it at that point in time, but really just trying to create that space of being honest so that the other person feels like they could be honest back because we're likely all going through something similar in some way.
Totally, totally. Again, like I have found time and time and again, right? Again, you don't need to tell everyone your life story, but just offer just a little bit, just something,
Yeah.
right? For you to just embrace your humanity and to genuinely connect with yourself and with other people.
Yeah.
And again, that's to answer your question. I think that's, again, that's where I started. And again, I saw it everywhere and I really worked hard on challenging myself. And every single time I caught myself, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm doing that thing. I need to, okay, back to the drawing board. Let's practice. Let me challenge myself to be a little bit more open. Or, I mentioned the thing about being like super intense and even some of my habits where I was like, okay, I need to read books for fun again. I loved reading as a kid. You gotta alternate. You gotta alternate. And so that's actually a system that I have right now is like I'll read one fun book and then I'll read one psychology book, one fun book, one psychology book. And I keep that system in place or else I will just go into like acad academia mode and just do all the research, read all the books, and then like it just sucks the joy out of everything, out of reading, which is something that I really enjoyed.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Okay, I'm doing that with books too. And I love a good self-help book and then I love a good psych book or a business book.
Yeah.
So I try to switch them out so I don't feel like it's always work and learning in a way to be able to support others, but learning in a way to find some kind of humor in learning new things that resonate with myself and where I'm at. And that's been really fun because, like you said, I loved reading growing up. I remember in second grade, I read like the most books ever and did the most book reports because I loved to read so much. I got so far away from that. And I was like, I never want to read. And finding that balance that made me feel good changed so much.
Yeah, yeah. And that's that's been a huge part of my process too, is learning how to have fun because was, I still kind of am, to be quite honest, very terrible at having fun because I didn't let myself have fun or I couldn't have fun when I was a kid because I took on all these responsibilities. I was just striving or I was really focusing on my physical health, especially during those years in college. Like I was just so focused on my physical health. I didn't develop that muscle almost to have fun. So that's been a huge part of my process. And I find that play, having fun is so important for a lot of people's healing process too. Reconnecting like with your inner child that way. Like, and it doesn't have to be like, oh, I'm pursuing this hobby or whatever, which also I feel like a lot of people, I see this with my clients too, where they'll talk about hobbies and they're thinking about it all of a sudden as a side hustle. And I was like, oh my gosh, we just skipped like 5 steps here. Like, didn't you just start ceramics class like yesterday? Like, do you even like it?
It's the messaging though today is that everything has to be a side hustle. Or
Everything is a
get
side hustle. Yes, and I'm always like, can it just be for fun? Like you might be, and that's the thing, you don't have to be good at it for to be a hobby too. I feel like a lot of people feel the pressure to be really good at something. I'm like, no, you can be terrible at it. As long as you like it, like who cares? Like have fun, enjoy. But even beyond that, like again, there's been I feel like a lot of pressure for a lot of people to have a hobby. I'm like, it can just be in like everyday life, just being a little bit more playful, doing things just because you want to. Again, I feel like life is so hard and we're so hard on ourselves that I'm like, hey, just like take it easy. Take it easy. Laugh. Like it's okay. And like again, it doesn't have to be like, oh, I'm doing this hobby and I'm going to go every single weekend. And that's another way that like people kind of, I feel like, internalize that intensity and it comes out that way. And it's like, well, that was supposed to be relaxing, but now it's a side hustle and now it's stressful. Or even if it's not a side hustle and you feel like you're doing bad at it, so now it's stressful, right? But just like bringing levity back into your life, and just finding like small pockets of it.
Yeah, it's so true. The hobby I took up was tennis. And in the beginning, I became so determined to be good at it. I'm not very athletic, not my thing. I would love to be. No, it's just not my thing.
That's
But
fine.
I started going like every single day for 3 hours, just
Yeah.
practicing.
Oh
And
my gosh.
eventually I was like, okay, I'm not going to be good at this, but I like doing it and I'm exhausting myself. So I started going maybe a couple times a week and then once a week. And I found so much joy in it. I loved hitting things in a healthy way, but
Yeah.
getting that intensity out there in a
Yeah.
way that wasn't making me feel more stressed. And that's the thing. There's all these like internalized messages of we need to be good at everything. And I think a lot of it also can be influenced by social media and wanting to have good content to put out there so that
Totally.
we become very hyper focused on how do I become good at this and how do I make this look fun instead of how can I actually have fun and enjoy doing this.
But I feel like that that's been coming up a lot. I feel like with clients, or even I just see it on the internet a lot too, just like comparison and social media and how you see these people, like you said, they picked up tennis or ceramics has been like super popular, like wheel throwing. Like everyone's picking up all these hobbies and they're loving it and they're doing so well. And now they're like selling some of their products even. Again, and even when people are, documenting all of this and putting it there out there online too, even that message is so curated. Like you don't see them messing up. You don't see how it took them like an hour to center, their piece of clay on the wheel. Like you don't see those things. It's so hard these days because you really do see everyone's highlight reel, and I feel like everyone's become so outcome oriented rather than focus on the process. I mean, it's so cheesy, but it's so true and it's so hard, but like fall in love with the process. I'm sure you've heard a lot of people say this too, right? Like fall in love with the process, but it again, so cheesy, so hard, and so true at the same time.
It is. And so recently my friends have been like, why don't you post days in your life on social media?
Mm,
You need to be posting
yeah.
more. And I was like, first of all, my life is not that interesting. And if I was going to sit there and do
Yeah.
things to be able to create content, that's so not true to where I'm at. Most of the time, I'm sitting in front of a computer. At
Yeah.
weekends, I like to go out and do things, but I want to be present with my friends. So my phone is usually on Do Not Disturb in my purse. I rarely touch it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't want to make my whole life about creating this image to look aesthetic to post online. I just want to be present. And I think that's a big thing with
Hmm.
my friends is it's so focused on how can I look aesthetic instead of how can I actually just be present and see what I like because that's how I learned. I love to go for walks with friends to the farmers market and get a croissant and have picnics with chocolate croissants.
Yeah.
But if I was so focused on taking the pictures, I probably would not have gone for the chocolate croissant. I would have gone for like fresh fruit, which I love, but not in the same way.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, it becomes so outcome oriented. And it's so ironic because then it also, you don't, like you said, you don't get what you want. And then, of course, I'm sure the berries are just as delicious, right? But like you said, that's not quite what you wanted, though, in that moment, right?
Exactly. And it's so difficult when there's all these messages from when you were younger of how you
Yeah.
should be good enough and you should be, especially as females, put together in a certain way.
Oh,
And then online, you're expected to do that. So
so,
start to figure out who you are and what you like. And then all of a sudden, it's going back to, no, I need to look a certain way so that people accept me instead of accept
yeah.
I am. All of the messiness and chaos, the very little grace that happens on a day-to-day basis. It's just trying to be authentic to myself is so hard when it seems like the world is telling you to be a curated image, not authentic.
Totally. And everything is about like the likes and the algorithm and the following and the opportunities, right? And to hustle and I feel like the girl boss is kind of dying a little bit that image, but at least for me, because I'm a millennial, there's like a lot of there was such a narrative and like an image of being that girl boss, right? Where you're like doing everything and you're doing it effortlessly and you look good while you're doing it, right? But that's just, I'm like, that's not sustainable and it's so unrealistic.
Yeah.
Especially now, like what I was saying earlier, like life is so hard. There's so much going on.
There's so much going on in the world. There's so many expectations. And one thing, so it's really hard, and I'm sure you relate to this with growing up with parents who are very well put together and successful. And my dad was like, it was, you should be more successful right now. And he didn't mean it in like a bad way, but the shoulds. And I was like, it's such a different world now. For you,
Yeah.
before social media, before cell phones, when markets weren't super saturated, it was a lot easier to go out and sell and create a business. Now you're competing against an algorithm so that people see what you're doing and then like your posts and your comments, and then the right people see it so that you can get ahead because so
Yeah.
much of the world depends on what you put out there and how people react to it instead of how great you are at something. And just messages of how you should be from the older generations to the younger ones is so difficult because they were so, at least my dad was so lucky to start out in a time where there wasn't that competition because he can't do social media for his life. And I'm always telling him how important it is. And he's like, why? No one cares. Like, for you, no one cares because you have contacts established. I have to build all that. And for some reason, it has to do with posting a cute picture or reel.
Mm-hmm. I know and this is something that's been coming up a lot too. I feel like is just navigating those generational differences where like our parents grew up in a completely different world,
Yeah.
right? Like we grew up with computers and smartphones and like we didn't find out about, our friend getting engaged or buying a house, right? Because we heard it through the grapevine or we were chatting with them. Like we see it on Instagram, right? Or we see it on TikTok or, whatever form of social media you're on. Like they don't understand it because that was not their reality. But this is our reality, right? And unfortunately, I mean, it's here to stay, right? And it's something that I think so many people, especially folks who are on social media, are trying to navigate. Right. And even if you're not, like, I think there are a lot of people, like, when I became a therapist, I didn't think I was gonna have to, be on social media and show up in that sort of a way. And, there are a lot of people that I think share that same sentiment of, well, whether you're like a small business owner or a healthcare provider, where you're like, well, I don't know this social media stuff. Like, I just wanted to, make delicious meals for people, or like I just wanted to help my patients, or I just wanted to be a teacher. Like now I have to do all this.
Right, I just wanted to help people, make people happy, and now I'm making myself on days super stressed and frustrated and overwhelmed to be
Yeah.
able to help people. It's so, but these are all messaging that I hope we start to unlearn. But for people who are listening and they want to unlearn some of these messages that they've received, whether implicitly or explicitly, what advice do you have?
I would say be curious, be very curious in the most non-judgmental way you can be curious and show yourself a lot of self-compassion in that process as well too. Because like what we've been saying, when you allow yourself to sit in those big questions and really reflect, I feel like that is what really gets the wheels turning in your head and allows you to begin that process where you are reconnecting with yourself and you're understanding who you are, right? What you actually need, what you actually like, and ultimately living a life that feels just so much more satisfying and fulfilling, not as heavy. Yeah, be curious. I think that would be the biggest thing.
That is such great advice. Be curious and that self-compassion because it is so hard to have self-compassion. It's so hard to stay curious in a world that's telling you who you should be. And lastly, to wrap up, how can people connect with you and learn more about you?
Yeah, so you can find me on Instagram at chatwithcat, or you can also find me online at kathrynleetherapy.com.
Thank you so much for listening to Normalize the Conversation. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review. This podcast is an initiative of Inspiring My Generation, focusing on normalizing the conversation, bringing education and awareness to the forefront, and amplifying global voices to spark change and hope. Inspiring My Generation is a 501c3 nonprofit organization on a mission towards suicide prevention through awareness, conversation, education, and support. Connect with us on Instagram at Inspiring My Generation and visit our website inspiringmygeneration.org to learn more about our work and how you can make a difference.